The real story about CM Punk and AEW is actually crazier than anything the dirt sheets printed about it. When the legendary but polarizing wrestler debuted with AEW after a 7-year exile, they felt major league. But what started out as a war between AEW and WWE turned into a war between AEW and AEW, where CM Punk found himself at odds with the elite. The locker room fractured. Passive-aggressive promos gave way to tirades. Punches were thrown. Niggas got bit. CM Punk's feel-good story in All Elite Wrestling turned into a Quentin Tarantino movie real quick, because CM Punk in AEW is a story about revenge. In 2021, CM Punk came back for revenge against WWE, but our anti-hero ended up seeking vengeance against his own petty coworkers in Jacksonville. Phil Brooks wanted complete control of an AEW locker room that violently got away from scared-to-death CEO Tony Khan, and he was literally willing to fight for it. I've spent every day and every dollar of my budget over the past 3 months studying CM Punk's disastrous tenure in AEW, and it's taught me a lot of lessons about the wrestling business. Good, bad, and ugly. All because one wrestler held an entire promotion hostage. So what went wrong with CM Punk and AEW? Whose fault was it? And where will we see CM Punk next? The answer might surprise you. CM Punk's AEW debut was a dream in a lot of ways. This had to be a dream because some people never thought they would see CM Punk return to pro wrestling, let alone in AEW. But he did. It was a wrestling fan's dream come true because it happened in the middle of SummerSlam weekend. WWE was at the peak of its powers and AEW was not too far behind, because them sold out the United Center for Rampage. The timing of SummerSlam weekend was perfect because this is a type of competition that only happens when pro wrestling is hot. AEW Rampage, The First Dance, set the stage for a 2-year odyssey that only CM Punk in the wrestling business can deliver. AEW President and CEO Tony Khan proved you can sell out an entire arena just by dog whistling. AEW fans didn't need to get beaten over the head with the announcement of Phil Brooks. AEW didn't even say his name. By booking the United Center and using buzzwords like best in the world, AEW's rabid online fan base heard all they needed to hear to know CM Punk was coming back. And they bought tickets in droves. 15,316 fans and this crying adult packed the United Center to hear the opening riffs to Cult of Personality. The second Rampage went on the air, that's exactly what happened.
Right off the bat.
You can't even hear his music.
Oh my God. Oh my God, bro. Do y'all hear that pop?
Oh my God. Cult of Personality.
Right off the bat. What? This is really f***ing happening. I mean, we knew it, but it's really f***ing happening.
The hometown hero has come home after 7 years.
The pop in Chicago was louder than the apology CM Punk wanted from Hangman Adam Page. We'll get to that in due time. But right now, we're in the honeymoon phase. Chicago's favorite son has come home, and AEW was in the center of the pro wrestling world. WWE's biggest show of the summer was one day away, and somehow WWE was an afterthought. After 7 years, CM Punk stood in the center of the wrestling world for 9 minutes and cut a picture-perfect return promo. It was like he had never left. CM Punk said he had some scores to settle. He's got time and he ain't going anywhere. Punk rallied AEW's hardcore wrestling fan base by preaching about his love for professional wrestling and how he couldn't stay in a place like WWE that made him sick in the first place. On August 13th, 2005, CM Punk left professional wrestling. You know, because his time in the biggest wrestling company in the world totally doesn't count as pro wrestling. But on August 20th, 2021, he's back like a fax from Michael Jordan. Whether it was 15,000 in the United Center or the over 1 million people who tuned in for an episode of Rampage, something that would never happen again, CM Punk was him. He walked into AEW and became their biggest star on day one. Everybody knew that it was only a matter of time before he would become world champion, but looking back, all of CM Punk's best moments in AEW came before he got his hands on the AEW World Heavyweight title. In his return promo, CM Punk was benevolent. He cast himself as the elder statesman of a young and talented AEW locker room. He praised the Britt Bakers of the world. Punk immediately set his sights on Darby Allin, who would be Punk's first opponent at AEW All Out in Chicago. Punk's match against Darby Allin was the beginning of the masturbatory Bret Hart tribute matches, a term coined by Hangman Adam Page. These tributes were a staple among CM Punk and FTR matches. Punk vs. Darby was a tribute to Bret Hart's classic TV match against the 1-2-3 Kid. Hart was the best in the world at the time, and Kid was an up-and-coming talent who could work his ass off. The same exact dynamic between Punk and Allin. Bret Hart versus 1-2-3 Kid started with a lockup into an arm drag. Punk versus Allin started with a lockup into an arm drag. The 1-2-3 Kid countered a counter to a hammerlock on Bret. Darby Allin countered a counter to a hammerlock on Punk. The knee to the gut. The back superplex into a splash. This was like watching the OG Little Mermaid right before seeing the remake. Same beats, very good results. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. 3 years after Bret Hart's instant classic against 1-2-3 Kid, Bret would exit WWE in the single most dramatic backstage blow-up in pro wrestling history. So Bret Hart's influence was everywhere during CM Punk's comeback tour. CM Punk knew how to tell a story in the ring, just like Bret. But when it came to telling a story on the mic with promos and feuds, CM Punk was better than Bret Hart. Punk could get a great feud out of anybody just by relying on his own star power and charisma. Punk used said star power to shine a light on some of AEW's homegrown stars like Powerhouse Hobbs, whom he beat at Rampage Grand Slam, and Daniel Garcia. Punk could tell a story with anybody, but with the right dance partner, his stories became biblical. Enter Eddie Kingston. Eddie Kingston captures the very spirit of all elite wrestling. A scrappy underdog. He's able to overcome every obstacle and disadvantage that stood in his way to rise to national prominence. The same could be said about AEW. Eddie Kingston is an everyman capable of the spectacular. Just put a microphone in his hand. Eddie is a modern-day Dusty Rhodes, but it took over a decade to get there. In fact, Eddie Kingston is the Hard Times promo because he don't look like the athlete of the day. His belly might be a little big, but brother, he's bad. He took the scenic route to pro wrestling fame and even seemed to be destined to be a career journeyman until answering an open challenge from Cody Rhodes during the pandemic. With no fans in the stand, Eddie's AEW debut, like his career, flew under the radar, but was too good to ignore. Eddie's proud of where he came from. Shouts to Yonkers, New York. You can hear his whole hood in his voice. It's crazy to think Kingston is not a day one AEW star, because nobody fits the identity of the type of gritty independent wrestler that AEW champions as an alternative to the clean-cut WWE better than Eddie Kingston. Eddie Kingston and CM Punk are two birds of the same feather. And even though they traveled similar paths, they reached entirely different levels of the wrestling industry. CM Punk went mainstream, and it was Eddie Kingston who stayed punk rock. That simmering bitterness of Punk's meteoric rise compared to Eddie's humble journey was the main ingredient of a feud that felt so real. CM Punk's feud with Eddie Kingston was all business, with no backstage shenanigans to speak of. But it also foreshadowed CM Punk's downfall in AEW. Punk's feud with Eddie was as brief as it was awesome, but it spoke volumes about the CM Punk problem in Jacksonville. CM Punk's rise came as a rebel, when he was anti-establishment. Even on his final day in WWE, he went out on his terms, telling the most powerful man in pro wrestling to take this job and shove it. IRL. On January 27th, 2014, CM Punk left WWE as a rebel. On August 20th, 2021, he debuted in AEW as an ex-WWE guy. Not to mention one of the biggest WWE stars of all time. AEW has a talented roster, but these were not his peers. CM Punk was the biggest fish in the pond and the shark who eats them. Suddenly, the Rebel had that same power that he raged against. CM Punk was no longer an underdog. He was a dynasty. He was what he hates. If AEW was the minor leagues, CM Punk was the New York Yankees. Eddie Kingston felt more like CM Punk than Phil Brooks. CM Punk and Eddie Kingston only had one face-to-face confrontation in the ring, and to me that's a travesty. Because in that one time they went face-to-face on the mic, it was realistic enough to make you believe in their conflict, but not so real that they couldn't do business. Punk fried Eddie Kingston for his physique holding him back, claiming Eddie didn't work hard enough. Which reminds me of when Triple H called CM Punk a skinny fat ass. Kingston's coldest line also foreshadowed the next 18 months. Nobody wants you here. They never wanted you here. That whole locker room is afraid to say it. Not me, so get out. This led to CM Punk now in Muay Thai shorts, which, by the way, AEW CM Punk was a drip god when it came to his ring gear. Can we talk about it? CM Punk's AEW run gave us Muay Thai Punk, Sting Punk, Long Boys Punk, OG Punk. He changed outfits almost as many times as he changed ops. Speaking of which, Punk beat Eddie Kingston at Full Gear in a very good match, but the only match they had in AEW. But if Eddie Kingston was an appetizer, MJF was the main course. Despite a brilliant career, Maxwell Jacob Friedman's best years as a pro wrestler remain in front of him. But even though he's young and on the rise, he was the type of condescending heel that could make CM Punk feel like Phil Brooks again. MJF's entire act was tailor-made for WWE. From the expensive suits, to the made-for-TV charisma, the impeccable physique, and that horrible tan. MJF ain't gonna risk paralysis in a bingo hall to build a cult following. He's gonna use every carny parlor trick in the book to land safely on the top of the wrestling business. MJF was the perfect foil for everything that makes the CM Punk character great. And it led to another great CM Punk feud in AEW. CM Punk and MJF told a simple story of former CM Punk superfan MJF challenging his childhood idol. But it was layered with several obstacles CM Punk had to overcome, an MJF staple. And even tales of anti-Semitism, another MJF staple. CM Punk versus MJF worked for different reasons as to why CM Punk versus Eddie Kingston worked. As a character, MJF was the complete opposite of CM Punk. CM Punk famously called MJF a less famous Miz. Similar to his feud with Kingston, this promo bent kayfabe, but it didn't break it. It all led to a showdown in Chicago on AEW Dynamite, where MJF beat CM Punk with the Dynamite Diamond Ring, handing Punk his first AEW loss in his hometown. MJF didn't win once, but twice. The first win was thrown out because the referee caught MJF cheating. The second win was upheld because, staying true to form, the AEW referee completely missed it. At the same time, AEW was teasing a breakup between MJF and Wardlow, who couldn't even. CM Punk's rematch against MJF came in a dog collar match at AEW Revolution in 2022. It was another masturbatory tribute, but this time to Greg Valentine and Roddy Piper. If you like some extra blood with your pro wrestling salad, this was your match. Punk was able to avenge his loss in Chicago with help from a fed-up Wardlow who had finally betrayed Max. AEW was telling stories with CM Punk and keeping it kayfabe throughout his honeymoon period. Unfortunately, Punk's dog collar match against MJF marked his final feud of the honeymoon period, because it was around this time that CM Punk began teasing an AEW title chase, and the hunted was AEW World Heavyweight Champion and charter member of the Elite, Hangman Adam Page. The Elite consisted of AEW founding fathers Hangman Adam Page, Kenny Omega, and Matt and Nick Jackson of the Young Bucks. The Elite's biggest star, Cody Rhodes, ultimately jumped ship to WWE. The Elite is tight with CM Punk friend-turned-foe, Colt Cabana. In other words, the friends of Phil's enemies were his enemies. Compared to the classics Punk put out with MJF and Eddie Kingston, Punk's feud with Hangman Adam Page didn't feel as special. That magic chemistry just wasn't there because in hindsight, it was replaced with tension. AEW rubs up against the fourth wall like it's a feline and the wall is smothered in catnip. That's great as long as all participants are willing to be professional and not cross a line. More importantly, to make sure worked shoots remain a work, a promotion needs strong leadership that they would never challenge by going into business for themselves. None of that is the case in AEW. Punk's feud with Hangman Adam Page snapped kayfabe in half. The most memorable moment between Punk and Hangman, for a lot of reasons, came during a promo on the May 25th Dynamite from Adam Page. And in the promo, the Cowboys started shooting.
This Hangman Page CM Punk face-to-face was something else.
It reminded me of when Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels in '97 did a face-to-face where the more you know, the more it meant. I remember watching this going like, holy shit. It's like they're not shooting, but holy shit.
Word on the street is, no, apparently him and Hangman have had issues.
Hangman allegedly took some microphone liberties, alluding to the past problems between Punk and Scott Colt Cabana Colton.
Well, apparently, going off the beaten path, off the topics that had been discussed, in order to take up for his company and his friends and the people who started this revolution.
He decided to go into business for himself. He went rogue. He was the rogue cowboy.
Adam Page not listening, not trying to get better, and Adam Page trying to come out his face and disrespect him.
Hangman meant every word he said in what turned out to be an unscripted promo, one that implied CM Punk was trying to get Colt Cabana fired. Page wanted to defend the AEW championship from CM Punk rather than against him. This was like Eddie Kingston's promo on Punk, but this time for real. Punk had been hit with a pipe bomb. A blow-up was inevitable. CM Punk's finest hour in AEW came when he won the AEW World Heavyweight title at Double or Nothing in Las Vegas against Page. This match featured not one, but two botched buckshot lariats from Punk. File that one away for now. Punk won the strap with the GTS in the same city as his finest hour in WWE, the Pipebomb. After Punk's big win over the Hangman, I went to AEW Dynamite in Inglewood that next show, and it was a celebration. CM Punk's first appearance as AEW World Heavyweight Champion. But this Dynamite was memorable for two reasons. One was MJF's worked shoot promo on Tony Khan, where Max stormed out of AEW for 3 months. The other was CM Punk shattering his foot doing a stage dive.
There was a tweet from CM Punk saying that he was going to be live on Rampage with an announcement about the title.
We got some unfortunate news, man. CM Punk's announcement. He has to relinquish the AEW championship, man.
CM Punk is down printed. Okay, we both good at the same time. That's the headline.
Crowd dive. Stage dive.
Crowd surfing.
Crowd surfing. There we go.
That's what it is. And banged his foot on the barrier.
CM Punk's honeymoon period in AEW was as fractured as his ailing foot. This was the last remnant of happy-go-lucky Phil Brooks. Like literally, the man was injured doing a celebratory stage dive. That Friday on Rampage, sad CM Punk was forced to vacate the AEW World Heavyweight Championship in a tearful promo. Well, kind of. Punk didn't exactly vacate the title so much as he announced he would be out for 3 months, and an interim champion would be crowned in his absence. 3 months later, sad CM Punk gave way to our toxic cousin Phil, and this version of Phil Brooks was here to stay. CM Punk returned with a receipt, and his first order of business was to call out Hangman Adam Page. Punk got injured before he had a chance to respond to Page's shoot promo, but now healthy, he challenged Hangman Adam Page, knowing Page was not booked on the show. Fans booed the absent Page, and Punk demanded an apology that was, quote, as loud as the disrespect. The war between CM Punk and the Elite had been simmering for months, but with CM Punk's response, it was made public. And from that point on, the real-life feud overshadowed anything CM Punk would do or say in AEW. This includes Punk's storyline feud with Jon Moxley, who had become the interim AEW World Champion while Punk was gone. Moxley unified the titles with an outright destruction of CM Punk on Dynamite in Ohio. CM Punk went down in flames in his first AEW World title defense. Some thought this was punishment for Punk's shoot promo, but it was all part of the story that they were telling. Punk had come back too early, and for both storyline and shoot reasons, he wasn't focused on the task at hand. Punk took his eye off the ball and lost his return match to a hungrier challenger. The angle was based on Rocky III. Ace Steel, CM Punk's real-life best friend, was in the Apollo Creed role as a retired veteran who snaps his friend out of his funk. Ace Steel's pep talk to CM Punk on the August 31st Dynamite inspired Punk to challenge Moxley to a rematch in Chicago at All Out. With CM Punk's home crowd behind him, he beat Jon Moxley to regain the AEW World title. Once again, CM Punk was AEW World Champion. And once again, he wouldn't defend it for months. Because CM Punk's championship win, and even MJF's return to the company, was lost in the wake of a detonated pipe bomb.
Well, the scrum began, and the very first thing he wanted to do was talk about Colt Cabana, Scott Colton.
My relationship with Scott Colton ended long before I paid all of his bills.
Oh, shit.
I have every receipt. When I finally had to countersue him through discovery, we discovered
he shared a bank account with his mother. Oh, that's a fact.
He starts talking about these EVPs who, whatever. What did he say?
The fact that I have to sit up here because we have irresponsible people who call themselves EVPs who couldn't fucking manage a target, and they spread lies and bullshit and put into a media that I got somebody fired when I have fuck all.
Oh yeah, I did hear about that.
I fucking heard what you said. I'll make you have some regrets, and no, I never forget.
There were some reports that CM Punk had gotten somebody fired or whatnot.
He was definitely upset at the EVPs and Hangman.
what did I ever do in this world to deserve an empty-headed, dumb like Hangman Adam Page to go out on national television?
Oh!
I don't play no gimmicks, I'ma take you to the clinic.
I made it really clear in Forbes, and I just want to make it clear again. Nick,
It's not his position to make it very fucking clear. There's people who call themselves EVPs that should have fucking known better.
Why am I gonna sit here and be like, yo, Punk, listen, we've already told y'all, Phil is going to be Phil. I don't know why anyone is surprised.
Kevin Durant. Never satisfied. Say that again. Who's CM Punk? Kevin Durant. CM Punk is Kevin Durant. Never satisfied. Never satisfied.
Everybody involved in this whole situation, whether that's CM Punk, that's the Elite, specifically the Bucks and Kenny Omega, and Tony Khan, all look like stupid Mark morons here. The whole damn lot of them.
It's funny that you asked about CM Punk because we're cut from the same cloth, IWA Mid-South. And that's how we were taught. Like, that's how we were trained to protect ourselves and to kind of be harsh like that. And protect the business.
I think, and I'm sure both of you probably agree, will end up being a transformative night in the history of AEW, for better or for worse.
You know, if the guys in the locker room deciphered it the way I would have deciphered it if I was one of those guys in the locker room, he would be fighting every time he walked through the locker room.
This is the face of a man in crisis. A man who wants answers but doesn't have any. A man at odds with an entire locker room. He's hurt. He's lost. No, not that face. This one. That's AEW President and CEO Tony Khan. But based on body language alone, this is a scared-to-death man-child in over his head. A lot can be said about Tony Khan. Visionary, Twitter-happy, dignitary, Nepo baby. Tony Khan answers the age-old question, what happens when a wrestling fan, who just happens to be a billionaire, gets to book the product? As insulting as this question sounds, the answer is actually pretty encouraging. Tony Khan, Shad's kid, was able to leverage his passion and wealth to build one of the most successful wrestling companies of all time. Nobody can take that away from him. And I don't think people understand how hard that is, regardless of resources. The wrestling business is a rapidly changing enigma, one that caters to fickle fans of a very specific taste. If success as a wrestling promoter was about wealth, the UWF would still be a thing. But AEW has done what 99% of modern-day wrestling companies could not. It became a successful national promotion, one that can attract big-name free agents, draw on pay-per-view, and even beat a WWE national show head-to-head for over a year. That's exactly what happened during the Wednesday Night War, AEW's coming out party. As a wealthy kid in Jacksonville with no prior experience in the wrestling business, Tony Khan lies somewhere between Rudy and Richie Rich. If ever an underdog story can feature a trust fund kid as its main character, this was it. Tony Khan had the bank account of a billionaire, but all the grace of a groupie. Tony's biggest strength as a promoter is his love for wrestling. His biggest weakness is his love for wrestlers. This is a business where paranoia casually strolls through the locker room like COVID in a bat orgy. And if your love for wrestlers overshadows your authority over them, they'll eat you alive. Every single time. CM Punk's composure vanished with Tony Khan's leadership that night. Punk suffered a serious triceps injury in his match against Moxley, and this time, he didn't want to wait until he was healed to cut a shoot promo. Until this moment, we didn't know much about Tony Khan's leadership style. Turns out, Tony didn't have one to begin with. Because as CM Punk brutally tore into his ops, Tony Khan was helpless to stop it. He didn't even try. AEW's rise was defined by a series of difficult tests that they passed. They tested the New York market by selling out Arthur Ashe Stadium for Grand Slam. They were tested by WWE on Wednesday nights, and now NXT is a Tuesday show. In 2023, AEW's first big test overseas resulted in a record-breaking crowd for All In, depending on whom you believe. But on this night, AEW's biggest star buried the company and everybody in it. In what was AEW's most viral moment to date, and Tony Khan's toughest test as a leader, Tony was too scared to even pick up the pencil. He froze. He choked. CM Punk committed the ultimate sin of eviscerating kayfabe right in front of the boss fan. And in addition to breaking kayfabe, I think it broke Tony Khan too. CM Punk's All Out meltdown was biblical. Seriously, it's wrestling's version of the Last Supper. The main course was Mindy's Donuts. Punk ranted uninterrupted for 20 minutes plus, but these images tell you everything you need to know. A wounded warrior at the end of his wits, a shell-shocked owner, tension in Chicago thicker than sky blue, and I say that with 2 C's. CM Punk went from honeymoon period to divorce bars in just over a year. He pretty much did the explosive podcast featuring Colt Cabana before he quit the company. It was a chaotic end to one of AEW's darkest days, but it was only the beginning. I've heard dozens of different accounts of the AEW Brawl Out. It's the world's worst game of telephone. It's telephone if the carrier was Boost Mobile.
Apparently there was an altercation after the press conference. Many people said that there was an altercation with Punk and the Young Bucks. Nobody is disputing that CM Punk punched Matt Jackson.
And perhaps multiple times.
No one is disputing that Ace Steel threw a chair and hit Nick
in the eye.
And nobody is disputing he pulled Kenny Omega's hair and bit him. The disagreement between the two sides is that the one side claims that CM Punk threw the punch first. The Young Bucks walked in and he started punching. The other side claims that the Young Bucks stormed in and were the aggressors.
Okay. So now we're going to do CM Punk's side of the story. But that last cartoon cost a lot. So this one will be done closer to a Rampage budget.
After the scrum, the Young Bucks were approached Punk's locker room, and CM Punk wasn't answering the door because he had been in a long, bloodied match finished with an emotional scrum.
So the Young Bucks go to the locker room. They banging on the door. Boom, 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 boom. CM Punk. Boom, 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 boom. Punk, you in there? Boom, 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 boom. Okay, keep it going.
The Bucks were said to have pounded on the door with claims that they eventually kicked the door down.
Just bam, like a home invasion type. Bam, just kick the door in.
Ace Steel's wife was in the room, which is what Steel had told people set him off and made him go ballistic. He started throwing chairs, Omega didn't seem nearly as upset initially, but then things got out of hand when he ended up getting bitten by Ace Steel.
Larry the dog was hit in the face by the door, and the claim was that he was taken to the vet and needed work done on his teeth.
The AEW Brawl Out left no question that Tony Khan had lost control of his locker room. It didn't help that Khan was similarly frozen when asked to address this issue in public interviews. Khan supporters will insist that he legally couldn't speak, but his comments never felt like well-calculated legal tactics. It simply felt like Tony Khan had been scarred. Khan's comments about the Brawl Out are always awkward and evasive, like asking a burn victim what kind of lighter he used. Tony Khan had the spirit of a substitute teacher, and in addition to CM Punk's drama with the Elite, backstage tension spread across AEW. Sammy Guevara versus Eddie Kingston, Sammy versus Andrade, Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa. The dominant narrative was that the inmates were running the asylum. If you're put in charge of pro wrestlers, all of whom are egomaniacs who feel they're better than they really are, authority is basically a form of currency, especially with a novice promoter. But Tony Khan was Dogecoin.
I think Tony Khan's a really great guy, but I think Tony wants to be liked, and he should be more focused on being respected. You know, lots of times I didn't like Vince McMahon. You know, he can be an incredible bully. He can be, he can be nasty. Always respected him.
Relationships between CM Punk and AEW seemed untenable, to the point where there were rumors that CM Punk was finna cash out of his AEW contract. There was talk of a buyout, which even led to talk of a possible WWE return. CM Punk didn't appear on AEW television for months in the aftermath of the Brawl Out, but Punk's offseason was more interesting than AEW's product without him. The Elite made their triumphant return in Chicago on the November 23rd AEW Dynamite. They wasted no time trolling CM Punk. This included references to Punk's go-to-sleep finisher and Matt Jackson botching the buckshot lariat as a parody of CM Punk. The Elite's return music, Kansas, was seen as a shot to CM Punk, particularly the line, "There'll be peace when you are gone." But Punk wasn't gone. In fact, the summer of Punk was entering its 4th season. CM Punk used FTR and IG stories as his PR team to express that he wanted back in AEW. Punk referenced Steve Kern's book, Kern Chronicles, where Jerry Lawler was able to get Kern and Coco Beware to hash things out after a backstage fight. PR Punk even went to war with the wrestling media, which is basically a collection of fans and podcasters just trying their best. Dirt sheets are nothing more than gossip websites for men. The wrestling media is what would happen if you gave press credentials to a comment section. Pro wrestling has the only media where saying nigger on an Xbox Live makes you qualified. One of Punk's most heated IG stories targeted Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, whom he called a liar. Punk went on to call Jericho a liar and a stooge. In an egregious revelation, Punk said he's never even seen Rocky III, which was the best Rocky, and he didn't sound too crazy about getting squashed by Jon Moxley in Ohio. Punk's IG story was an epilogue to his all-out tirade. The off-season odyssey continued when CM Punk showed up backstage to Raw in Chicago. A lot of people have their theories as to why he did this. Was he trying to show up the Elite and shift the narrative to how forgiving he is? CM Punk can mend fences with WWE. Why can't the Elite do the same with Punk? Was CM Punk trying to force his way out of AEW and return to WWE? Was this a power play to get more money out of AEW? Nobody knew. In hindsight, I don't even think CM Punk knew. CM Punk showing up to make good with the rival promotion while under contract with AEW wasn't even his biggest betrayal of AEW. At least he showed up backstage at Raw. That's more than can be said about the upfronts that year, in what was supposed to be CM Punk's miraculous AEW return. Against all odds, unless you're betting on Tony Khan caving to a wrestler, CM Punk was on his way back to AEW. In a strange twist, Tony Khan used a people-pleasing strategy to placate CM Punk and the Elite. Tony Khan gave CM Punk his own show, one where he would be far away from the Elite, who were on Dynamite. 2 shows, 2 tribes. AEW had officially succumbed to the same tribalism that defines the bitter wrestling discourse on social media. Despite getting his own show, CM Punk was all like, "That don't work for me, brother." At the AEW upfronts, where the Warner Brothers Discovery Network puts its best foot forward to announce its big plans for TV, CM Punk embarrassed AEW once again by not showing up. Punk no-showed an event where he was to be announced as the star of AEW Collision, a new TV show built around the guy who flamed out of the company less than a year earlier. Like, what could go wrong? AEW had to scramble and remove Punk's likeness from all imagery and graphics, and Khan's big announcement later on that night on Dynamite was ruined. Sometimes the universe gives you a sign and you just have to go with your gut. This was one of those moments where Khan was burned yet again by the most polarizing man in his locker room. The writing was on the wall then, but Tony Khan was in too deep. CM Punk was healthy and ready to return. As part of a toxic press run, CM Punk issued a warning shot in an ESPN interview that took aim at Hangman Adam Page. On June 17, 2023, AEW Collision debuted and CM Punk returned, 4 days before the summer solstice. CM Punk's return to Collision was like a second honeymoon. Phil was all smiles and back in Chicago to give praise to AEW, which he called the greatest wrestling promotion in the world. He lauded the Elite as astute businessmen and said that while they may have their disagreements, anybody who shares a locker room with me is an ally and a brother. CM Punk said he misses his friendship with Colt Cabana and openly wept as he asked Hangman Adam Page for forgiveness. I'm just playing. That man chose violence day one. Punk symbolically removed the AEW mic flag from his pipe bomb, as if to say no more peace talks. He walked out with a belt bag, which would turn out to be carrying what he called the real world championship. Then he proceeded to cook. Legally prohibited from speaking about the Young Bucks apparently, Punk still barred them up by calling the EVPs counterfeit bucks. For CM Punk, this was not a redemption tour. This was countdown to meltdown. In 2023, CM Punk didn't come back for a second chance or even a 20-second chance. He was not here to make nice and show the world that he could mend fences. CM Punk was here to finish what he started at All Out, to rid AEW of the Elite and rebrand the company in his vision. Unfortunately,
breaking news in the last couple of minutes, it has been announced and revealed that all 4 members of the Elite, that is the Young Bucks, Hangman Adam Page and Kenny Omega, have all signed brand new All Elite Wrestling contracts and will be staying with AEW.
We also have the announcement that the Elite have all re-signed with AEW.
The Elite will be remaining Elite. When the Elite re-signed with AEW, I feel like CM Punk took that as a declaration of war. To CM Punk, he was supposed to be the golden boy of AEW, not the Elite. After every fireable offense Punk pulled in AEW, not only was he not fired, Tony Khan gave him a promotion. Punk got his own TV show less than a year after burying the entire company. In his return promo, he said WBD President David Zaslav calls him One Bill Phil. Punk had to have felt bulletproof. He was Tony Khan's favorite. So when Tony Khan re-signed the Elite to a long-term deal, I think it stung CM Punk. It challenged his status in the AEW pecking order, and he did not handle it well. A little over a week after the Elite re-signed, CM Punk said this about Hangman Adam Page in an off-air promo.
Today I went to a local supermarket and I figured out why they call him Hangman. It's because the pegs in the toy aisle are full of Hangman action figures because nobody wants to buy them.
With his power threatened and his ops here to stay, CM Punk then pulled another power play. AEW stars were reportedly banned from Collision. Among those who were allegedly booted from Collision were Matt Hardy, AEW head of talent relations Christopher Daniels, Hangman Adam Page, and Ryan Nemeth, whom Punk confronted due to Nemeth subtweeting about CM Punk. CM Punk turned AEW Collision into his own personal Twitter account, blocking anybody who ever even had a negative thought about him. CM Punk felt like more of a wounded animal than ever, and he was acting out. Anaconda Vice nothing. This was an orca whale in captivity, covered in tattoos, and Killer Phil was ready to drag motherfuckers to the bottom of SeaWorld. Reports began to surface that CM Punk was at odds with Jungle Boy Jack Perry over the use of glass. Perry wanted to use real glass, and CM Punk, as the elder statesman and the emperor of Saturday nights, nixed the idea. CM Punk's insane final month in AEW lined up parallel to the build-up for All In, AEW's historic London pay-per-view. Though All In was supposed to be AEW's finest hour, the build-up to All Phil was 10 times better. Because while All In was centered around wrestling matches with limited stories, All Phil was filled with the type of juicy locker room drama that inspired great documentaries like this one in the first place. It was the toy sales promo on Page, the banning incident, Glassgate, CM Punk seeming to take shots at Matt Jackson's wife on IG stories. Like any great build-up, there had to be a payoff. And like any great payoff, it happened at AEW's biggest pay-per-view of all time. AEW All In's legacy will be setting the paid attendance record in pro wrestling, potentially lying about said paid attendance number, and a show bookended by AEW's hottest storyline when MJF and Adam Cole won the ROH tag titles and went on to main event against each other that same night. But no matches really stood out as historically memorable. I think the most memorable image of AEW All In was this one. CM Punk walking out of All In and out of AEW for the last time. Because moments before what would be his final AEW match against Samoa Joe,
guess what? There was a little backstage problem with CM Punk this week.
Again?
You're shocked.
Just minutes before CM Punk opened up All In against Samoa Joe, there was a physical altercation between both Jack Perry and CM Punk right before Punk went out to the ring. During Jack Perry vs. Hook, there was a little moment where Jack Perry was tapping on the limousine glass. Obviously, that was a shot at CM Punk.
CM Punk's Brawl In against Jack Perry came almost 1 year to the day of the Brawl Out. After the fight, Punk reportedly threatened to no-show All In, but ultimately decided to be professional and defeat Samoa Joe for the Real World Championship. But this would be his last defense of that title in his final match in AEW. During a cold open on the September 2nd broadcast of Collision in Chicago, Tony Khan announced the firing of CM Punk for cause. Khan tried to do damage control by addressing the live crowd after the news broke. The crowd was furious.
This was the first time, this incident, that I have ever feared for my safety in a wrestling show, that I have ever feared for my life in a wrestling show. Okay. All right, bro.
Helpless to combat the jeers, Tony Khan was booed out of Chicago like he was John Cena at Money in the Bank. With his leadership more flaccid than ever, Tony Khan's company line was that he feared for his life during CM Punk's backstage brawl. I appreciate the honesty, but this did nothing to salvage Khan's reputation as an authority figure that this locker room desperately needs. He actually made it worse. Tony Khan was clearly traumatized by CM Punk's tumultuous tenure in AEW, but there's also a lot to be learned from it. CM Punk in AEW will either be a valuable lesson for Tony Khan, or it'll break Khan entirely. Punk's exit from AEW hasn't been a death sentence for Collision. Of course, Collision gets massacred when they go head-to-head with WWE PLEs. But overall, Collision hasn't quite drowned as much as it's treaded water without CM Punk. AEW's attendance has been very low in the post-Punk era, a cause for concern, and AEW brought in Edge as somewhat of a spiritual successor to CM Punk. AEW is still weathering the CM Punk storm, and while they do have the resources to survive, they will not be able to thrive without a leader. As for CM Punk, it's another off-season for Cousin Phil, and this time, it sounds like he wants back in WWE. Punk posted this IG story of Iron Man and Doctor Doom agreeing to a truce in the Doom Quest comic book series. Many are speculating that Survivor Series in Chicago would be the perfect target date. Maybe Punk could be a surprise entrant in the Royal Rumble. Punk might not be worth the headache in WWE, but star power is like crack in the wrestling business because wrestling promoters are addicted to star power, even when it's liable to tear a whole locker room family apart. And as the wrestling war between WWE and AEW gets more heated, WWE will have more incentive to bring in CM Punk. Baggage and all. Maybe there will be another documentary after he slaps Braun Breaker in NXT.
Well, of course we'd welcome him here in NXT. My guess is he probably would want to go to the main roster would be my guess. I always enjoyed working with Phil. Again, didn't get to do it much. I understood him. Again, whether you want to say there were similarities in us.
Even if we get through Survivor Series and he doesn't show up there in Chicago, Royal Rumble, that train's coming a few months later. So the speculation is going to continue.
CM Punk will be back at some point. It would be more impactful for me to see him show up at a Rumble.
What's something that you learned from Punk?
Just stand on what you believe and don't be a pushover. And that stuck with me. He's a great guy.
And I've been very clear about my opinion of CM Punk from the day he showed up and predicted that it was going to be a financial flop. And we can debate that, I guess, but it was a flop. It was a bad investment. It was a bad choice.
It's difficult, but bet in this game.
Yeah.
And people should have more respect for him.
He has a respect for this business.
Yes.
That I could say 80% of the wrestlers in the business these days does not have that business. And that's what's hurt. That's to our detriment. That's what's hurt the business.
You know, and CM Punk's just like a petulant, bitchy ass dude. He's a malcontent.
I do miss him. I feel his absence for sure in the locker room. And I'm counting the days until he makes a return. But yeah, Punk is the man.
When Punk goes to the WWE and has no issues and nobody gets fucking goozled backstage and there's no goddamn whisper campaign going on, it's going to make AEW look worse. Oh, it must have just been that place.
Thank you for watching The Pipebomb Problem. Check out this CM Punk playlist and subscribe. Where do we see CM Punk next? Wrong answers only. Tell me in the comments.